Hello, everyone. Vin Ebenu here in the Town Square Media Jersey Shore newsroom with a couple guests, a couple of Jersey Shore humanitarians, Kristina Rems and her sister, Alexandra Cruz, to talk about a mission of sorts that they have going on, the Waves of Education, and a nonprofit organization that is looking to raise $150,000 in part to help build a primary school in Uganda by January of 2022. So a little over a year from now, and they're both here to talk about their mission and how you can help them achieve their goals. So Kristina, Alex, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Finn. Happy to be here today.
Hey, you know, in 2020, it's great that we could do virtual things like this. Who knew? Like even a year ago, doing a Zoom interview would be a thing, but here we are. So this is great. So I was going through the story that you sent me, Kristina, and feel free, you could start off, or Alexandra could start off here about how this whole started. So tell me what Waves of Education is all about, kind of the backstory here of how this came to be, what sparked the idea, what led to both of you kind of taking this on.
Sure, I will.
Take it, yeah.
I'll kick that one off. So Waves of Education really came about back in January of 2018. So I am a pharmacist, and I had participated in a medical mission in January of 2018 with an organization called the Waves of Health. So Waves of Health is a medical outreach organization. They do missions to primarily the Dominican Republic twice a year. And in 2018, they shifted focus a little bit and started going to Uganda. So I went on the first mission. There were 9 of us. And when we got to Uganda, it was just like such a different experience and such a different place than I've ever seen before. So, you know, to just give you some background, so we were hosted in the country by a group of sisters called the Little Sisters of St. Francis. So they were the ones who really organized the outreach, got all of the patients to come to the village for the screenings. And we're really just providing primary medical care and treatment for all of the patients. And while we were there, we happened to have a little girl that was introduced to our group. She was about 6 years old. Her name was Kevin. And she came to us. She didn't speak any English. She had, you know, a ringworm in her head. She was the cutest little thing. You could tell she was malnourished. Her clothes were a little bit tattered. And she was just, she was there because she was coming to the village, which is where her dad was from, with us, because she was in the sister's care at the time. So we, you know, get in this little bus to go to the village to start our outreach for the mission. And, you know, she's kind of thrown in the back to where I'm sitting, and she's sitting next to me, and, you know, we're kind of laughing. I'm showing her my phone. She's never seen a smartphone before. We're taking selfies, and she's just finding it like so entertaining and having the best time. As, you know, I'm like kind of claustrophobic in this little van all the way at the back, but it's like getting me through this trip. So we get to the area that we were doing the outreach at, which is this fishing village called Kavule. And just kind of taking in the area, it's right off of Lake Victoria, which is the source of the Nile. So the backdrop of the area is beautiful. I mean, it's just this big, huge lake. You know, it's so peaceful. But then you kind of get into the actual village and you start to see how these people live. And for the first time in my life, I really saw like what it really means to have nothing. Like these people were living in these, I don't know that you can even call them homes. You know, they're these one-room huts, so to speak. You know, families are being crowded in them. There's, you know, boys wearing girls' clothing. Who has a shirt, no pants? Who has the pants, no shirt? And just, you know, really like seeing how little these people had and the excitement for anything we were providing, whether it was excitement for the medical care. We brought stickers with us, and, you know, the kids were like taking after the stickers were like taken off, they actually took like whatever was left and like throwing it on their face because it was just something that was like different and they didn't have before. But as kind of part of this trip, I really bonded with this little girl, Kevin, and, you know, we just, the whole time it was very nonverbal communication because, again, she didn't speak English. And the sister kind of gave me her backstory, and she, you know, she told me that this little girl had come from this village of Kabule. Her dad was a 75-year-old alcoholic. Her mom had left her when she was 1 year old. And really what was happening was the dad would take her as he would go out to drink, and he would just pass out on the side of the road, and she would just kind of be left there waiting for him to kind of come to, and really just was complete neglect. And one of the villagers had contacted this sister who was a social worker and said, you know, we have this girl, she needs help. Can you help intervene? And the sister was able to help intervene and take her. But at the time when we met her, she was being placed into foster care, and the family that she was with, she was claiming that the father was beating her. So the sister's telling me this whole story, and this is after we've kind of bonded, and I'm like, I'm loving this girl. She's just the sweetest thing. And she's saying that she wants to get her into their boarding school. The sisters have a boarding school. So I just asked her, what's the cost going to be to send her to boarding school? I want to help this child. And she was like, okay, the cost is 1 million shillings. And I'm like, okay, what's that in dollars? Like, I'd love to help, but I don't know what I'm signing up for. So, I mean, really, when you break it down, though, the cost ends up being like a daily small coffee. I mean, it's absurd. And so she gets to go to school, she gets to eat, she is taken care of, she has clothing. And really, you know, she has some breaks throughout the year, but the majority of the time she's being taken care of at school. So that was like kind of the original story. I came home, I shared all this information with my sister. She right away was like, I want to help a child. Are there other children that need help? And kind of in sharing the story with more and more people were willing to or wanting to be a part of it and asking, I would love to sponsor a child. Is there a child I could sponsor? And kind of before you know it, we put together this like unofficial sponsorship program where we got 16 kids sponsors. And, you know, as we just kind of started thinking, all right, we haven't really tried too hard to get these sponsors, and this is the response we've gotten. What if we try to do something more? And so I think COVID really played a big part in all of this, because, you know, we were sitting in quarantine and thinking, like, feeling very grateful, right? I mean, I am fortunate enough that my job allows me to work from home. I didn't have to go out for my groceries. I was getting them delivered. My family was healthy, you know, and just kind of really feeling fortunate that I still had so many things when so many people were struggling, kind of got my like mental state like, okay, well, how can I give back because of this? And, you know, I started talking to Kristina about it and trying to get her thoughts on, okay, how can we make a greater impact, and what would that impact look like? And that's where we came up with this whole idea of Waves of Education, and, you know, just started kicking the tires with our in-country partner, which is the Little Sisters of St. Francis, and then also talking to Waves of Health to see if they would be on board with, you know, partnering on an initiative with us. So all of that, everyone was on board, the Little Sisters, Waves of Health. We kind of put this idea forth, and, you know, now it's launched. We got a marketing team on board. They've helped us with a website, and you know, we launched with a Giving Tuesday campaign, where we've gotten a pretty good response, in my opinion. We're close to $35,000 already just by, you know, launching that campaign. But it's really been exciting to see people's energy around it, and just, you know, knowing the impact that education has had on this little girl, Kevin, who, you know, I still keep in touch with. I try to see her twice a year. Obviously this year is a little bit of a different year, but, and then, you know, she's just thriving, and otherwise wouldn't have had a chance. And it's just like, because of that, I want to be able to do that for more people. And this is kind of our way of trying to pay it forward for a larger group of people. Kristina, please chime in with your,
I always leave her to go first because she has the whole background, and then I kind of jump in after. So when Alex came home, like the passion, I've never seen her more passionate about something in my life. And I mean that in the best way possible. Like, something just changed when she came back. And I think seeing that, it made me want to become involved. And I'm also a teacher, so I do know how much education can really impact someone's life. I think with COVID too, just seeing the disparities between like different districts, and how some, you know, have access to internet and all the students have access to Chromebooks and things like that. And then in other districts, like, who can't get internet. So I think really seeing like the inequality and inequity there is in education just in the United States, but then taking it to a whole nother level and thinking about like developing countries where we really don't think about education or like how students are being educated, because so our in-country partner, the Little Sisters of St. Francis, they actually sent us a video of how the students in Uganda are doing remote learning. and they literally are sitting around a radio, and the sisters had to like pick up their workbooks from their boarding schools, and they're just sitting around the radio listening to the teacher and just filling out their books. But there are a lot of problems with that too, because some of the resources the teachers or the sisters can't get. So there's a lot of like things that I think just COVID made me so much more appreciative of our education system and how much we're able to give to students in the United States. And then just thinking about, like, again, the bigger picture and these children in developing countries that even to begin with don't have as much as we do. And then to like put the whole COVID situation into play, it was eye-opening. And I think that that's like kind of really what got me involved too, was that I just know that, again, how much education can impact a child's life, and like how much just having one person believe in you and like helping you persevere. Like I think that so many of the children in developing countries, like their parents are concerned with like making sure that they have enough food on the table or being able to care for like their siblings, that they really don't have those people who can really like foster them and care for them and believe in them and empower them. So I think that that's kind of what got me more started, is because I just want to be able to empower students and children who at this point really don't have that ability to be empowered. So that's how I got involved.
You were shorter than your sister were.
I have to admit, I'm like a 5 minute, I'm good.
One of the questions I had, touching on what Alex said, but certainly you could answer it as well, Kristina. Yeah. What is involved in sponsoring a child? Is it kind of a donation thing? Does it work like a pen pal kind of thing?
So the really nice thing about the sister who we work with, again, because Alex has such a good rapport with her, so we pay, they have like trimesters in Uganda, so we pay every trimester for the students to go to school. And again, the price depends on if the students are going to boarding school or if they're going to a day school. And then she's able to send us videos, she sends us their report cards. So we have a lot of communication, which is really nice, because I feel like with some organizations, you're sending your money, you're not really sure, like, is it going to them or how much of it is going to them, but like we genuinely know that all of the money that we are giving is going to them. And then I actually had the opportunity to go with Alex to Uganda last August. So I got to meet the girl who I sponsor, and I also met some of the other sponsored children. And again, it was just such an eye-opening experience, because like even we were in a village and we had brought like flip-flops for kids, and you would never think that flip-flops are like a big deal. Like you can get them at Old Navy, you know, sometimes they have those sales for like $1.
Right.
And I just remember, and I think this was actually very like eye-opening for me too, is I just remember giving a child a pair of flip-flops, and he literally like got down on the ground and started bowing to me. And that was just like so overwhelming on so many levels. And again, it just obviously made me appreciate like all that I had, but then it just also made me feel awful, because like for a child to be that appreciative of something so small that we take so for granted, like I just knew that we like something more needs to be done. So definitely
small. What are some of, and both of you touched on it, what are some of the other things that maybe surprised you when you visited Uganda in terms of either the living conditions or their education, or anything going over there where you knew a little bit about what was going on over there, and then it ended up being much worse or much different than what you anticipated it would be?
Yeah, so I think what's actually really interesting is I really had like no idea what to expect when I was going over there. I just kind of like signed up on a whim. I was like, Africa sounds like a cool place to go. I've never been. Sure, why not? Let's give it a try. And so when you land, their international airport is called Entebbe, and when you land in the international airport, and right out of Entebbe is Kampala, which is the capital. So you right away, you kind of notice that obviously things are not like they are in the US. The roads are not quite as developed, and the buildings are not quite the same either. But the original part of our trip, or the early part of our trip, I didn't have the thought of like what I thought Africa was in terms of like the poverty and just kind of seeing all of that. But that was very quickly switched once we moved away from the capital and into like the village area. That's when I kind of saw like it with my own eyes, like the real extreme poverty that you may think of, or maybe you don't even like realize to the extent of which it exists. But it was just very interesting to see the kind of contrasting like views of it. Like in the city, it was like, oh, this isn't bad, you know, like this is not quite the US, but you know, you could tell it's a city. You can tell there's, you know, a lot going on. There are business people there, you know, it's not by any means, it doesn't look like a developing country. But then it's like in very stark contrast to when you go to the villages, and it's like that whole city vibe is completely replaced with just this like very desolate, you know, there's nothing around. There's no, like, I always wonder how people get food. Like there's no like markets around. They have, you know, to walk to the nearest, like they call them trading centers, is like a 5-mile walk just there. And like, they obviously don't have vehicles. They have these things called bodas. So essentially it's like a little motorcycle, and that's like a main way that people can get transport around. But again, it costs like $1 or so for a boda ride. So, you know, if you're a poor villager, you're probably not getting on one, but that's the best chance for transportation that you have. And you see sometimes the bodas come into the villages, and they'll bring like some like food that I guess people like buy or like come together to buy as a group. But really there's just not much there. It's just very, very desolate. And it has like a forgotten kind of a vibe to it, where it's like, who's helping these people, and why these people are just like here on their own, like just surviving on a daily basis. Like, I think that's kind of that was the surprising part to me, was like just seeing the contrast, and then just seeing like how forgotten these people are.
Yeah, and I think for me too, so when we were staying with a sister, there was a little girl who was probably, I would say like 5 or 6, and she was like the primary caregiver for her little brother, who was around like, I would say like what, 3 or 4 months old at the time, Alex? And
Yes.
like all you see is she has him like slung on her back, like she took care of him. So she was like changing his diaper, she was feeding him. She was like his mother, because his mother, or her mother essentially, was working the whole time to try to provide for the family. So I think that was a big thing for me too, was just seeing how like of a much of a responsibility this little like 6-year-old girl had to have to care for her family, because her parents were working to try to provide for them. So that was really eye-opening too, because if you think about the 6-year-old here, they have iPhones, they have iPads, you know, so it's just like crazy to see the contrast between like a typical child growing up in the United States versus in Africa.
Absolutely. What are some of the things that the both of you are looking to do education-wise over there? Obviously, through the waves of education, I know you trying to raise funds to build a primary school in Uganda within the next year plus or so. What are the goals education-wise for the areas in Uganda and with building this school?
I think essentially our overall goal is definitely empowerment. Like, we want to be able to empower a community to be like self-sustainable and self-sufficient, so they learn how to do things on their own and how to provide for themselves. That's definitely our overall goal. I mean, it's going to take a while to get there, but just with building the primary school is just giving these children a chance to be able to do that. So, I mean, essentially, again, we want to develop the primary school, and then after that, we would like to get to build a secondary school. But again, because these children just don't have access to an education, and a lot of them are just like sitting around the village, and it's just, we want to be able to give them a chance. And I think that that's our goal, just with education, teaching them like simple math, reading skills, literacy skills, because again, like, you don't realize how much of an impact education has on like healthcare, and how much it has on reducing poverty. So those are all things that we really want to target. We just really want to empower a community, and again, give the people a chance. So.
Yeah, I think just to kind of add to that a little bit is like, you know, these people in the villages, they're trapped in this like endless cycle of poverty, and it's generation after generation, and there's really no avenue for escape. And, you know, we see it as education is an opportunity for these people to escape that relentless cycle. So we're definitely looking, so we haven't chosen an official location as of yet, mainly because we want to be able to scout and see the location with our own eyes before we start building. But that being, so we were supposed to go in August, but obviously for reasons of COVID, we haven't had that opportunity. We're hoping sometime in the early spring, we'll have the opportunity to go see the area. But what we're asking the Little Sisters to help us with is find, you know, a few locations where there are, you know, 350 plus students or children at a school. There's no school within 5 miles. You know, we have like several criteria that we want to make sure are met in order to find an area in great need. And I think one thing that we didn't actually touch on is that in Uganda, they technically do have universal free primary education. So the government does provide it. However, there are a few issues with it. One is, although it's free, there are still fees attached with like uniforms and school materials. And so sometimes even those $3 fees per trimester are too much for a family to handle. Another issue is that there are just not enough of them. So there are miles between schools and, you know, these people are on foot. So getting from, you know, walking 10 miles a day is a little bit difficult. And the third problem really, it has to do with the government paying the teachers. So there seems to be an issue with getting paid on time for the teachers. So what you will see sometimes is teacher absenteeism. So that, you know, and that obviously leads to not quite a quality education. So, you know, knowing those facts about how the education system works, we want to make sure that we're in an area that, you know, really needs it. And then I think the other big thing is getting the community involved as well. So the last thing we want to do is build this school and put up this structure and say, look what we built. And then the community is like, well, we don't care about education. That doesn't mean anything to us. You know, like we're not looking to be these like saviors by any means. We're looking to just kind of help help people who want the help and who want a chance to kind of be empowered. And you know, like Kristina said, the ultimate vision is that eventually the villagers kind of take this into their own hands and they're able to start like just sustaining this school with their children and kind of be able to, you know, take care of it on their own rather than relying on, you know, us donors in the US year after year.
What can the Jersey Shore community, the people and businesses here in Monmouth and Ocean counties do to help you reach your fundraising goal and any other goals that you have in raising awareness or anything else that you'd like for the people around here to help you both with?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing right now that we're looking for is just to kind of get the word out there. And I think you kind of just said it, like raising awareness is really key right now. You know, we're very new. I mean, we're affiliated with Waves of Health, who's been around since 2007, but you know, they've always had the mission of serving the underserved in terms of healthcare with a long-term vision of establishing, you know, a permanence in a country. So this kind of fit nicely in their long-term vision. But at the same time, you know, from a perspective of building a school, this is very new, a new initiative for us. I mean, luckily we have a good partner in country established that we've already worked with. So, you know, so that's been great. But I think we just want to make sure that people realize like what the situation is over there. And I think a lot of times people get caught up and in some ways rightfully so, thinking that, you know, there's plenty of problems in the US and, you know, there are plenty of people struggling here and why don't we help here? And, you know, while there are plenty of organizations doing great work here and the need is here, I'm not saying by any means that it's not, but at the same time, you know, I feel like the help available here is a little bit more than what's available there. It's just, you know, again, these people are very forgotten or so it seems. So that's why we just kind of want to raise awareness that, look, yes, there are problems in the US and there are things we need to fix here, but also like there it's even worse. And we want people to know like what's going on there and our vision for kind of, you know, a drop in the bucket of making a change and such a great impactful change in someone's life. So yeah, definitely raising awareness, sharing the story, you know, just we have a lot of social media we're trying to get involved with, sharing the stories of all our sponsored children. You know, we want people to follow that, to be inspired by it, to be excited by it, because it's just something very special to see with your own eyes. And, you know, we've met all these children. This is not something where, you know, you're writing to a pen pal who's not even, or like, who's a made up person responding to you. Like we've seen these people, we know that this is something real and, you know, we want to carry that through. And, it's just something I clearly am very passionate about. So I think, just kind of raising that awareness and any support, as we kind of go through this, this is our Giving Tuesday campaign has kind of come to an end. We'll be starting fundraisers. We'll need some support in terms of, if we want to do a 5K, like, just helping people get involved, and just, that's kind of what we're looking for, is just awareness and support at this point in time.
Kristina, do you have anything to add on that, or?
No, I mean, Alex is very good with words, as you can tell. I think she did a good job summing it up. But again, just spreading the word. And we really just want to inspire people. And we want people to know that, we are so grateful for all of our supporters so far, but there's so much more work that needs to be done. And I think, like, honestly, we kind of like I think this was the easy part, raising the money that we did so far, because a lot of it was from family and friends and people who know us. But we just want to show people that we are authentic and we are genuine, and what we are really passionate about what we're doing, and we do really want to make a difference. So I think just like showing that we're authentic, and that this is something that we really want to do, and we are going to do it regardless. So just having people aware and spreading the word.
No matter what.
Yeah, no matter what. That's it. We started, so we have to finish.
There you go. That's the way you pursue the goals. Once you start, you got to finish.
Yeah.
If people want to learn more or donate to the cause of building this school, where can they go, social media wise, website wise?
Yeah, so probably the easiest thing, our website is wavesofeducation.org. So you could get to the donation page from there. You can get to our social media from there. We're on Instagram and Facebook, the Waves of Education. So, if people just want to follow our pages, you can do it that way as well. But again, the wavesofeducation.org is probably the easiest way to find us.
Alexandra, Kristina, thank you for sharing your story and your experiences in Uganda, and your mission, your goals, and the goals you want to accomplish with the Waves of Education and helping these kids in Uganda and building the primary school and everything. And certainly wish the both of you and everybody with you all the best of luck in achieving these goals. And, a round of applause for doing what you're doing in helping these kids, and sharing the story with the shore community, kind of to your points. Sometimes we take some things for granted that we have, so good here, and then we take a look at what's going on in other parts of the world, and kind of about perspective.
Yeah,
totally.
Thanks
for having us, Ben. Very much appreciate it.
That's Alexandra Cruz, Kristina Rems with Waves of Education. I'm Vin Ebanu here in the Town Square Media Jersey Shore newsroom. Again, wavesofeducation.org if you can help, and even if you can't donate at this time, continue to spread their message and the awareness of the cause.